Hey guys, welcome to the Laying Foundations podcast. This is your co-host Davis Hambrick. Joining alongside me today is Walker Lott. What's up, Walker?
What's going on, Davis? Have you had a good week, man?
Oh yeah, I've been busy. We talked about this earlier, but be careful what you wish for. I've been asking for
For
more
sure.
responsibility, and the good Lord dropped it on me this week. But what about you, man?
Man, I have. It has been the busiest week of the semester. We got finals next week, and all the professors, as you know, decide to throw everything at you on the last week. When everyone else throws everything at you. So just finally getting my head above water a little bit and getting to finish the week
Mhm.
off strong. But man, other than that, just thankful that I'm alive and got to have this podcast today. And that was a ton of fun because we actually, speaking of school, got to have one of our professors on it, and that was really special. And he's been very supportive of us, and it was awesome getting a chance to speak with him. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Hunter talked about some of his opportunities overseas, doing contract work and then coming back to the U.S. And he has a lot of perspective on just life in general. He got, one of the points he talked about was at a young age he was leading people in senior to him, which
Hmm.
that's a hard position. But then also he's bought into the team. But then the other third thing that I really loved is he looks at each person as an individual, and I
Yeah,
think a
so
lot of
good.
people get so busy in construction to where they're just a number and we don't care, but he cares about each person, and that's what I'm about because my mission statement is I want to live a life of compassion in order so I can listen well, and I really just I resonate with Hunter, who he is and what he tries to embody.
No, I completely agree. I think everyone listening is really going to love it, and he has an incredible take. And one of the main points that I love very much, and we touched on it before, but he really dove in depth into it. It's just that you never know what someone's going through. You don't know their life story. You don't know what they've been through. Just give them a little bit of grace. At the end, he uses grit and grace, but just give them a little
Right.
bit of grace and find their story. Ask them questions like you'll learn later is what he says. Just you can have a whole conversation with just asking questions.
That's right.
Ask them questions, learn from them. But man, without further ado, Hunter McGonagill.
Hunter, man, welcome to the show. I'm really excited about this one. I think this is going to be an awesome one. For those of you who don't know, this is actually one of my professors at Auburn University, as well as one of Davis's old professors. So calling him Hunter is a little strange, but we're going to go with it. So, Hunter, man, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on it. You have been a huge support to us thus far in our journey, and very open, very welcoming, very honest, very helpful in everything that you've been doing and want to do for us. And so we're really excited to have you on the show. Just to start out, like per usual, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you from, how did you get into construction, how did you get to Auburn to become a professor. We just want to learn a little bit more about you.
All right. Well, let me start with saying thank you for you guys having me on. This has been really enjoyed watching y'all's journey and getting to this point. We're extremely glad to be a part of it. Proud of what you guys are doing, and love the fact that I'm still learning from you. I can sit there on the couch or in the truck, turn on a podcast, and learn something from construction professionals all over, and that's really what it's about. And there's so much knowledge out there, so much need out there, and if we can start sharing that knowledge and it's um, it's beautiful for everybody. So appreciate you guys doing this. And that's man, you rambled off like I don't know 7 or 8 questions there. I don't know really know where to start with that. I could probably go for the full 30 40 minutes, however long we're going to talk, just off that list of questions. But the the short answer to how I got in construction is the rule was that you were allowed to go to work when you could open the door and get in the truck yourself. And so I guess I'm 3.5, 4 years old. My dad
That's awesome.
grew up in construction. That's
Amen.
all I've ever known. And about that time, I could get in the truck. So I went, and we were doing mostly site contracts. So we were doing heavy civil type stuff, and really anything we could do to make a dollar. My dad's just one of those people. He's not necessarily the studied building science graduate, but he is a builder. He's just one of those guys that like, here's my vision, go make it happen. And somehow, some way you come back a few days, weeks, months later, and he's been able to put that together. So it was awesome to kind of grow up with that. And man, so yeah, it's led me through lots of different places. And now here, and honestly, it's weird. It's still weird hearing you guys call me professor. I've only been here like a year and a half, right? But bounced all over the world doing other stuff. And to think that they're letting me stand there and teach students, that's crazy.
I think it's the gray hair and the wisdom you have, right?
Well, there's a lot of gray hair. There's not as much gray hair as there used to be, and it's not because it's changing colors back, but undoubtedly stress and airplane mileage can age you.
There
Believe
you go.
that. You know, sometimes I like to blame my kids, but really, man, I've got two great boys,
Mhm.
and it's not them. I kind of chose a little bit of a stressful
Mm.
profession, but
Yeah, that's right.
it's getting better
That's
every
right.
day.
That's awesome. And Hunter, if you could, I think it was awesome you sharing that story about you and your dad, and really being able to get in the truck, and whenever you're able to open the door, and you think about that in today's world, holy cow, how that's different. But just getting to walk out on job sites with them and getting to see your dad have that vision, I think that's part of you. Tell me a little bit more about that. Tell me about how did you think going to these different job sites and seeing him have this vision, what it specifically made you want to get into it? I know you could have gone and just been like, no, I don't want to do it, but what's something that struck that nerve, like, you know what, this is the industry for me?
Well, part of it's just the creation aspect. You get to help build something. You get to help. You go out there, and I say help. I can drive by or point at or show you pictures on the internet of quote unquote stuff I built. We love to say that in construction. I built that, but in reality, we don't build anything in a vacuum. Talk to the students about that all the time, right? Like this is the ultimate team game is construction. You think about how many
Amen. Yeah.
people it takes to
Hmm.
how many thousands of people does it take to build a stadium? Some of the projects I've been on recently, we had lists of security names. Like you had to um, go through the list, and for you to be on that site, you had to be cleared. And we had over 5,000 names, on that list. And
Wow.
it's humbling. You're just a small piece of the puzzle, and
Mm.
I think that also helps you kind of take a step back and be grateful for all the other people around you helping make stuff happen. um, so the idea of being able to build, the idea of being able to be a part of something bigger, and I think that's innate in all of us. I think that's how we're designed. We're all part of a bigger picture, and it's a beautiful thing when you're like, you know what, I'm okay with my little space, my little purpose, and to be part of something larger. And I think the construction world is a picture of that.
That's right.
Yeah, I love the, the thought of just building things because I'm kind of the same way. I've always loved Legos. I had a huge Lego room filled with all you could want when I was younger, and I'd spend hours upon hours doing that. And honestly, I think a lot of the want that we all find to build something, to develop something, to have an entrepreneurial type spirit, honestly, in my opinion, goes to back to Jesus, honest, because he was a carpenter, right? He made things with his
Yeah.
hands. God created the earth. It's always creation, created, building, growing, right? And that's
Right.
kind of the whole process throughout time, and which is why I'm a huge believer of that is what we're called to do, and that's also why we love doing that type of stuff. Some people love it more than others, but I'm right there with you. It's just building
Yeah.
something with my hands, making something is just incredible. But let's go to, so you started a majority of your career, not besides working with your dad, but you worked for the city of Ole Miss for a while, correct? Or for the city of,
Yeah,
or
yeah, city of Oxford, which is where Ole Miss
Oxford, yeah,
is.
not Ole Miss.
So my progression, yeah. So kind of a sidebar in the construction world. We always have. Sometimes we're guilty of having nice fat summers where July and August go great. You can go that weekend, and you can go pick out a hand cut steak somewhere. And then there were those winters where you kind of eat a lot of spaghetti. And when you're a kid, you thought meatless Mondays were something special, but really it was just a tough January, right? So I thought I'll fix that. I'll go to engineering school. So went to engineering school, did that, and really kind of never got out of construction because then even when I was doing the design work, we did a lot of site design. I would still end up inspecting, end up kind of doing some of the construction management. You know, we always think about inspectors and third party stuff, but in a lot of small towns, especially in the southeast, the engineers and the architects are the ones who are still kind of managing the site. You'll have the engineer record or architecture record actually still out there with it. So that was me up until a fiscal cliff in 2008. It was a pretty bad time to be in real estate development, and went over to the city of Oxford. It was a good state job, and I always joke that it wasn't enough bureaucracy, so I ended up going federal. But those couple of years in Oxford were great. Really, it was kind of put out there. It was interesting from the standpoint that I had the credentials. I was local to the area, knew a lot of the people. It was kind of my backyard, but at the same time, I was asked to go in and supervise a lot of people that were my seniors, you know, and it was humbling to do that. And at the same time, there's lessons learned in taking on that kind of responsibility. And all of a sudden, you know, whether it's, you know, 50 or 70, whatever the number might be, really what you've got is you've got different teams, right? And that's a process that goes across all different organizations where you've got your team, you find your leaders on that team, and you work through them. You've got to eventually break it down to a manageable size. But yeah, there's some politics involved in that, keeping some taxpayers happy in that, trying to take care of your team in that. And, you know, you're doing it in a diversified state and environment where, you know, you want to keep everybody pleased and happy and follow all the rules. And, um, you know, every once in a while you get that image of, you know, 10 guys leaning up on shovels and one guy working. And sometimes that's true, but at the same time, you meet a lot of good, hardworking people, and that's just another continuation of appreciation for somebody actually out there doing their trade.
That's right.
Sure.
And Hunter, you got me fired up right there. You know, I think a lot about construction leadership, and you talked about an opportunity that supervise your seniors, and you also mentioned a little bit earlier about how construction is a team game, and I can't think of a bigger industry. I can't think of a more of a sky's the limit type of job. And to think that a lot of the times why projects don't come together, it's not because we don't know how to build it. It's our pride. It's
Yeah.
because our guys in the field or office, whoever, can't get over our ego. And you know, I want to talk about that opportunity you had to supervise your seniors. You said you have some times that you had to learn from your mistakes, but tell me a little bit about that, because I know as a young guy thinking that I'm about to go supervise people older than me, how difficult that can be. Maybe talk about some of the barriers and stuff and the lessons learned you had in that.
Yeah. So I'm probably the biggest piece of advice I could give with that is nobody likes to be called out in front of their peers, right? We're all going to make mistakes, and to be for you to show up, you know, trying to prove yourself as a young guy and think you're going to call somebody out in front of their peers, that's probably the worst mistake you can make. And then also, you don't have the same life experience as those around you. You know, you're being presumptive. You really don't know what else is going on in that person's life at that moment. The very best thing you can do is pull somebody to the side, hopefully with nobody else noticing. But even if you have to do it in front of a group, walk out of sight. Walk where you can't see the group, get that person, and start asking questions. Davis, that's something you say a lot, right, on this podcast. You know, the was it lead with questions, or what's the slogan?
Listen, learn,
Listen,
and lead
learn,
with
lead with
questions.
questions, right?
Listen, learn, lead with questions. But you do, that is definitely a moment where you need to lead with questions, and you need to listen to what they're saying. You need to learn their situation, because you don't know what the previous supervisor let people get away with. You don't know what that person's um, dealing with in that moment in their life. And frankly, you don't know if they know the rules, right? I mean, one of the classes we teach is construction safety, and we can walk out there and we can scream at somebody they're not doing their job safely. Well, have they actually been trained? Do they know? Have they been communicated with in a way they can understand? Yeah, they sat through a PowerPoint slideshow, or we showed them an orientation video when they came on the site, and we had them sign the piece of paper like, yep, but check that box. But have we really communicated with somebody? And and that, I don't care how old you are. I don't want to do that with a, you know, with a student. I don't want to do that with somebody my senior. I want to give respect where respect's due. And then if it's a Matthew 18 principle too, right? Something's going wrong. You talk to that individual, and then, well, that didn't go so well. So let's kind of get the bigger group involved, get some leadership involved. And while that's probably more applicable within the church, there's still some lessons in that, right? They're life lessons in that.
That's really cool. David, sorry for butting in on the listen, learn, lead with questions. I got excited. I remembered it, and I think that's one of the biggest things people have taken from this show. I was like, yes, I remembered. But man, I think that's a incredible thing to remember. It's just, not a lot of people always think about that. Hey, someone else is probably going through something as well, and so just keeping an open mind, and instead of, like you said, chewing someone out, just asking a question. And typically, if you ask the same question multiple times, you'll finally get to the answer, right?
It's true. And you ask the better questions when you listen, and you keep going down that trail.
That's good.
And Davis, going back to what you said about the pride and the ego, it is so destructive in our industry. We are a bunch of tough guys, and the amazing part about switching careers like I have and moving all over the world is there are tough guys in every society, and there's always a tougher guy. So at what point are you going to like take the step back and go, all right, let's be on a team? And the yeah, I worked in a program one time. I described it. I said that, I was asked what there were a couple of projects out of the, I don't know how many projects I've worked on at this point, 100, 150, whatever the number is. And, like I've had a couple of projects go bad. And I was like, well, what was the difference? What was this one like? Pride. And that was my one word answer. And people just couldn't lay down their own calls. And we're the same way. When we go over, if we're about to choose somebody out, we're taking something personal. And that's probably something I learned more specifically working in the Middle East is such a diverse culture, and we tend to take stuff extremely personal. But we do that because we think the world revolves around us, right? That goes back to the pride statement. So when we get to the point, like, you know what, this is just how this person is, and you know what, that person's got something going on, or it can be yesterday, it can be 20 years ago in their history, something happened that made this guy this way, and it's not because of me. I'm not that important to that guy. That guy didn't all of a sudden change who he was because of me. So
That's really good. I mean, that's the thing. It's just remembering that everyone has their own story. Everyone's been shaped by something different in their life that is
absolutely.
not necessarily anything close to what we experience. It's just keeping that in mind. But you mentioned a lot, a couple of times about the overseas, and so I know we know a lot of your story, but just for the people listening, I mean, that's an incredible part of it. So go into a little bit about that. How did you get overseas, start working over there, and tell us some details of that.
So my overseas story is probably just one of those moments where it proves God's got a sense of humor, because it is exactly what I said I would never do. I grew up in the Southeast, local church, and like, I would see people talk about international missions and doing things like this. I'm going, man, there are plenty of people in my hometown that need some help. Why in the world would I go get on an airplane? And we were at a banquet one time, like kind of church related, and somebody asked me, well, when are you going to do one of these? And her name was Miss Debbie, and Miss Debbie and I went to church together. And I looked at Miss Debbie. I said, Miss Debbie, I will go do one of these trips when it's on a beach in Australia. And about that time, the missions director stood up and he said, he was real excited about telling on this story. Here's what we're doing. And he was real excited about all the things they had done the past year. And he's like, but I've got to tell you something right now. He's like, I'm really excited about our next trip. We're going to a small island just north of Australia, and we're going to be on the beach. And I'm just like, everybody at the table, like their jaw just drops, right? And I went, and man, it changed my life. It absolutely just changed radically to see. We were in a place called East Timor. It gained its independence in 1999, before South Sudan. It was the newest country in the world, and it had been just riddled by civil war. And it was us and a bunch of UN peacekeepers. And I go into this mountain area. We're going through like 4 or 5 translators, and these are the most joyful people I've ever been around. And they got nothing. I mean, their
Yeah.
country's been destroyed. A few years prior, they did gain their independence. The UN intervenes, and they're up there on this mountain, and it was beautiful. They can recognize creation. There's no doubt that they're surrounded by something greater than them, and it was humbling,
Mm.
extremely humbling for an American to go. Really, I mean, I had done the trip to Mexico in high school. I'd made one trip to Europe, but man, this trip was different because we went to see the people. We didn't go see the sights. We didn't go see the places. We didn't go, see the Mayan pyramids or the castles in Europe. Like, we went to see a group of people living with dirt floors and a thatch roof, and it changed
Wow.
my world. And it
Mm.
changed my world so much that you start asking the question, well, you know, it, you start to realize that at that moment for me, man, it's so much bigger than me. Is there a part I can play in just, being a citizen of the world? And if I had an opportunity to go back overseas, and I would have, and I did, my family and I, my boys were 5 and 3, and we ended up doing some volunteer work in Israel. And then a position came open managing construction. Long, I'll shorten the story, but ended up working for the U.S. government, and then ended up in Israel doing work there, and got to work on the Israeli military program, building work, you know, building infrastructure for them for almost 6 years. And it was an
Crazy.
amazing, amazing experience.
Hunter, I love that. I love your story, and I think that's great that about you talking about being able to go overseas, and if the timing is right, if you would have ended up in Australia, you would have went. And it's kind of funny. I've been thinking. I think eventually one day I would like to go do that at some point. And I got involved in a group that I know Brian O'Neill. I got involved with
Yeah,
Third Lens Ministries, and
yeah.
when I was at Auburn, and
I'm
they're
meeting
looking
with
for
them next week.
exactly.
We work across the world, but I'm also working across the state line. I'm going back home to Mississippi to do some
That's
work with
right.
them this summer.
That's right. And Third Lens, guys, if you're a young person and a professional that wants to get into construction, design, whatever, I would encourage you to hit us up. We'll get you in contact with Brian O'Neill. But I had the awesome opportunity to get to know Brian, but get really good experience to volunteer. And like you said, you meet some of these people, and it's just they're some of the most joyous, most humble thing, and they have nothing, absolutely nothing. And you come across those people in life and you see what they've gone through, it you just automatically, I have nothing to complain about. I have
Yeah.
nothing that I should even remotely complain about. And I don't really know where I'm going with this, but what was it like? I know you touched on it a little bit, but what was it like, getting to work with those groups of people?
Yeah. It's one of those things that's so hard to describe until you actually experience it. I can tell you what it is to see the joy on the kids, or to hear them, sing songs and just, melt you. I mean, I'm just a burly Mississippi construction worker with a, Southern accent. They did not want to try and translate my language, right? But I could play soccer with those kids, and just be there with them. Just show them that somebody across the world cares about them enough to get on an airplane and come see them. And um, I can't. Yeah, man, it it it. And I'll say this. It gave me a comparison now to also what I've been doing over the past few years, and the opportunity that I've had to meet people in extremely high places. Right, you meet Israel's a very political place. You meet political figures coming through. There's a lot of diplomats that all of a sudden become my circle. The amount of wealth that some of these individuals have, and you see it go a couple of different directions. You see people who have kind of feel like they've arrived and they found contentment, but then you see people who are actually worth more, in quote unquote worth more in worldly wealth, and they're never going to stop. There's never enough. And to see the stark contrast. I mean, let's say we deal in construction. We sell something, and it might cost $500 million. And what we sold you one building. We sold you, one hotel, one conference center, one hospital, whatever it may be. We sold you one something, and we just charged you half a
Wow.
billion dollars to get it
Mm-hmm.
right. So
Mm-hmm.
we deal with these huge numbers, and we throw out millions and billions, and and I go from the East Timor $3 all you can eat buffet, and nobody in the country can afford it except us and the UN peacekeepers. And then, like people are spending thousands of dollars on their favorite cognac. And I'm just like, how do you balance that?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and I just they're both people, That's really what it boils down to. And this life that we're living at some point, we're young, we're chasing things. I see my students, and they're ready to go build the biggest, best, newest thing and get paid money to do it, and it's a great career. But at some point, I hope it hits all of us. They're like, okay, I'm building this, I'm doing this, but who are the people that are going to be used in the facility? I've been blessed with these skills. How am I using these skills? And hopefully we share that wealth
Yeah.
of talent, knowledge. It doesn't have to be financial wealth. One of my mentors here, just this past Sunday, he used the term time, talent, and treasure. His alliteration of three T's, and I love that. I mean,
Walker's writing it down.
there we go. We all have that certain amount. The same amount of time. We all have different
Yeah, I
talent.
am.
And we all treasure different things. And money's not necessarily a bad thing. If you
Yeah.
get a lot of it and you work hard for it, what are you going to do with it? You're not taking it with you, right?
Right.
At some point, it's going to hit everybody. Oh snap! I don't get to take this with me.
That's good.
And it
Mm-hmm.
was it was interesting to see, to be involved in some people's lives when they're having that light bulb moment,
Mm-hmm.
going, wow. And yeah, a lot of people have not understood why, you know, I've I've made some of the changes I've made and career moves I've made. And thus far, I've tried to never make a move based on money. I've always tried to, what is the right opportunity, the right time, and what's next. And right
That's
now
great.
I don't know what's next.
That's
We'll
good.
we'll, we'll see, you know.
Yeah. I love that for a few different reasons. You talked about how, you know, money doesn't define really who you are, your worth. And for someone, speaking, if I can, let's park it here. If I can speak personally for a second, I did not grow up in near circumstances other people in different countries, but or I wasn't, I didn't have everything. Not that I have everything in life, but I just was not. I didn't have a lot growing up, and so go through school, working really hard. I got into a point where I thought it was all me making it happen. Like it's only gonna be me. Like I'm only gonna get myself to where I need to go. And then, this light bulb moment, like you kind of talk about, it's like, Davis, it doesn't really matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how successful you're going to be. If I can't make a relationship with Walker Lott and Hunter McGonagill and us work together and me actually value them, their time, our relationships together, there's no point of what I'm working towards because I'm going to have to work with a team every single day in, day out. And that's what God calls us to be. God calls us to be very relational people. He calls us to love each other. But that just I love that because I'm not making a lot of money now, but I am completely content of where I'm at in life. And if I showed y'all a picture of my little apartment here, y'all would be like, what in the world are you talking about? But the peace and joy that God gives you, that light bulb
Awesome.
moment, man, I can't speak more about that.
That's really
That's
good.
so true. So true. I mean, and I'm a blessed man, from humble beginnings, but at the same time, you really think about what all of us grow. I mean, we could camp out right here and stay for a long time if we really wanted to get, you know,
For
think
sure.
international about it. What percent wealth does it give you in the world if you have and own a refrigerator and running water? It's a staggering number. But anyway,
That's
back
awesome.
on
I mean, that's
construction. We can talk construction.
You're very right. Honestly, I've never really thought about that before until you brought it up about the refrigerator. But man, going back, you mentioned it a couple of times, and I know we talked about in the very beginning of the podcast. But going into just kind of you being a professor a little bit at Auburn University and here in Auburn, Alabama, so how did you decide to make that transition to teaching here and just tell us a little bit about it. I mean, what's your favorite part? What classes do you teach? And let's go into that.
Well, my journey here first came to the realization that I did not want to spend the rest of the career in the office. I got to a point where what was waiting on me was some very good positions to come back to after being overseas for a little while. I had some good offers and good places, but every one of them was going to be at a desk, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but um, that's just not how I'm wired. So I wanted to have the ability to build, to do, and I actually got my master's through Auburn through an online distance program that they do, and it was great. It's funny you use the analogy Legos earlier because I've told a lot of people like, I had, you get one of the sets of Legos now because I don't know if you can buy Legos but as a group, but you buy the sets, they're all coming in different bags. And I had all these Legos, right? All these different bags for the set, but I didn't have the book. And I felt like the distance program at Auburn for the graduate program kind of gave me that book, helped me put some pieces together, made me better at what I did, and just really kind of made me connect some dots in the framework I already had. So I was grateful for that.
Cool.
So when we were coming back, and my bottom line, my oldest son was going to college. I didn't want to live in a different country when my child was in another. So, and we thought it would be a good time to move back. We had an opportunity to come back sooner, and we were like, we're going to be overseas for 4 years, or we're going to be overseas for 6 years. Because my youngest son, we wanted him to be able to have 2 years of high school as well in America. And of course, then COVID happened. So I'm not sure that really worked out quite like we had planned, but he's doing well. He's actually taking classes at Auburn now. But the position came open at Auburn. I was actually looking at a different university because I love to teach. And really, as I've been places and done things, I don't know that I'll ever get to build anything here that will rival what I've been able to do other places. So it's like, so now what? What's next? And the idea of teaching has been heavy on me for quite some time. And I started putting a package together for a different university, and then a position came open for Auburn. And I'm like, yeah, I know the guys there, I know the town, I know the people, and like this is a good place to be. So we've been in Auburn almost July will be 2 years, and it has been a great place, and we have thoroughly enjoyed being here. But really, I told somebody the other day, what's going to keep you around, and I was like, the reason that I'm still here even today is like it's the students. We've got good students. As long as the students want me around, then I'm gonna try to serve them. That's really what it's about. It's a service that I'm providing. These are my clients. These are my customers, and I want to teach them what I can.
That's really cool. The story of how you got there, I think I love hearing how people get to different places and their story to there. So going into you being a professor at Auburn, first of all, what classes do you teach?
Yeah, so that's a great question. When I put in for this, that's one of the questions they asked me, and I kind of had to have a thought like, I don't know that I'm going to consider myself a true expert in a lot of different things, but for the level that we're teaching it at undergrad, I hope I'm able to come in and just kind of teach what they needed. And the semester I came in, they needed some assistance with a mechanical class. That mechanical class, the professor was going on a study abroad, and they just asked me, say, "Hey, can you teach mechanical?" And I don't know that I've ever taught mechanical, but I've been doing military infrastructure for a decade now, lots of mechanical stuff, right? So we can do that, and then that turned into construction safety, and then it turned into what I hoped it would, and that's the service learning program that we do. Auburn's unique in the fact that we do have a built-in program where we're actually giving back to the community. All of our students
Right.
do that, and we love doing that because I feel like, man, if you're coming to Auburn and you want a building science degree, probably one of the best things we can do in a class is build something, right? So we actually get in the community. We give back to the community through that. And what's great is there's so much interest from the community. We've got a professor here who kind of heads up the Scott Cramer kind of heads up bringing in different groups in the community, different nonprofits, and it's prolific enough to the point now the students actually get to pick their projects, which is great, because you're getting buy-in up front of who do you want to help, and it becomes more personal. And I love that. In 2018, when I came in for an interview, I got in a truck with Mike Hosey. I think Mike Hosey is one of those people that's kind of like my dad. He could just build anything. Like, I don't need to set
Yes.
it. Just tell me
For
what you want me to
sure.
build. Oh, you want it over there? Come back 7 days later. It'll be right there,
Uh-huh.
and he'll have a smile on the whole time he's doing it. But I got in the truck with him, and he immediately sold me on what was going on. I'm like, if I'm going to come back, if I'm going to change careers again, this is a great thing to be a part of. So I love the service learning class, and I teach several others. I think I don't know, in 5 or 6 different classes now, but that's by far my favorite. I love the service learning, love to build, love watching the students go from you know at the beginning of the semester. And then really what I love about our students, man, we just show you guys, 2 or 3 times how to do something, and then kind of coach. And then that method of you, you know, letting you teach somebody else, and boom, you've got it.
It's hilarious about Hosey. You brought that up because as you know, I have him right now for my service learning because I'm
Right,
actually
right,
in the
right.
class currently. And we're doing, and you did it too, so you can speak to this as well. We did Exodus Ranch, which is a
Yeah.
fantastic organization. It's a family. I actually have a presentation on this tomorrow, but it's a family who kind of takes in children in need who maybe aren't having a good family situation, or their kids need a place to live for a little while, or sometimes they adopt them, but they have a house that they did in addition to, and so we were responsible. My group was, at least, for putting the siding on it, which is a whole lot more longer and
With
tedious process than I thought it would be because we did not finish. We have a whole backside to do. But
so
going off of that, there's a handicap ramp there, and in order to get siding on, you got to have scaffolding or some sort of scaffolding. And so the handicap ramp was too close to the house to fit the scaffolding in between it. And so what Hosey did, and it was genius, honestly, is we took all the railings down that we needed to, and he built a platform out of 4x4 posts that were level with the handicap ramp, so that we could put the scaffolding half on the 4x4 posts and half on the handicap ramp, and then we could finish building it up at the top. And I was like, man, I would have never thought of that in a million years. It was so impressive.
kudos to farm logic.
That's what I'm
We
saying.
can't teach you guys. We can't teach that in a book, man. But you'll remember that the rest of your career.
Oh,
You
I'll
just figure
probably
it
use it
out.
again.
And he probably didn't call the architect and ask him how to do it, right?
Heck no. Heck
That's all
no.
right. But oh, that's great.
And Walker, if I could butt in here, you talking about Scott Cramer. I would like to get him on the show before. I don't know if I've told you this, but he had an interesting conversation with me. He graded my thesis, Hunter, and so I ended up doing really well. I wrote my what's it called? What's the thing at the end? This not dissertation.
Your
What's the
thesis. It's the
student
thesis.
selected work? Student selected
Oh
work. That's
yeah,
what it was.
yeah,
And it's gonna be funny because I'm gonna say I'm really passionate about it, but I couldn't remember student selected work. But anyway, I wrote a paper on trades and the skilled labor gap, how we could solve it, and everything from student loan debt to 9 yards. But anyway, that conversation led to Professor Cramer talking to me about how his dad was a superintendent and he moved around year after year after year after year, being a kid in that environment. How he got into construction was really cool. And you made me think about Mike Hosey whenever I was doing, service learning. I wish I could see him on a commercial construction setting as a superintendent, because he would just be all over the place, putting everything up all at once. And I
He
just
does not
love that.
stop.
Yeah, he does not. And, tying that all together, I love the part of how we get to give back to the community. But you're right. The best thing that we can do is build. And I personally, wanting to be a superintendent one day, I would love even more of that opportunity to build.
Well, we're going to keep it in the curriculum. I think it's only growing. You know, Robbins and Morton came out. They built us a big, nice field lab, and we were really just scratching the surface what we can do. And now the interesting part is we've proven ourselves capable on several things, and we've got a couple of projects now that actually extend across semesters. We've been working hard with Habitat for Humanity. They've got a great volunteer leader. His name's Mark Grantham, just a solid guy. Really cares about giving back and is a great organizer. The interesting, you talk about third lens a while ago. There's a hole that third lens has to fill sometimes, and that's helping nonprofits actually manage the construction. And Habitat for Humanity Auburn has got a great guy in Mark Grantham doing that. And those are the people, I get to meet those people. We got to have dinner with the couple that we're building the house for last week. And, it's just to be able to look somebody, eye to eye, give back. And like the family out at Exodus Ranch, the Tufts, being able to do that for them. And we could back up and have a whole conversation on labor curves and estimating and stuff like that. But you start getting respect for people who are doing high work, right?
You
I mean, this
do
house is
very
well
quick.
off the ground, a couple stories high,
Oh
and
yeah,
tall
we're like 30
ceilings.
something feet in the air on
Yeah,
scaffolding.
it's
Dude.
it's a little different production curve, right?
Oh yeah, it is a whole lot longer than we thought it would be. We're like, oh yeah, we can finish it. We're gonna be able to do a deck and put this column in and we're almost to the end of the semester. Like, oh man, I don't think we're gonna be able to finish this. But so kind of you talked about switching a lot of different times and what you want to do next and everything else. I know that you have a company as well that you are involved with that you've been working on. But what do you see kind of yourself doing in the next 3 to 5 years in terms of being a professor and in terms of working with this company? What's kind of your vision for that?
Man, that's such a loaded question, and I'll be honest. I'm torn. I feel blessed. I have the opportunity to do a few different things right now, and it's a question I'm truly struggling with at the moment. My contract with Auburn is out August 1st, or excuse me, August 15th, and it was a 2-year contract, and I'm really wrestling with what I want to do. I've been presented a couple of different opportunities, the ability to not that this was purposeful, but the ability to network here. I've met a lot of good people. I mean, Auburn is so connected to industry. Industry knows that I'm here in a lecturer role, which just means I teach. I don't do research. I'm focused on teaching, and that's where I am for the next few months. And what's next? I'm not real sure. When we first came back, it was kind of a toss up between if I got one of the positions teaching, then that's what we were going to do. Auburn's a great place to come back to, call home, make home, and then an opportunity to kind of step out on my own. And that's still out there. That opportunity exists. I did start a company at the request of my international network, trying to find some good American contractors to come over and work on U.S. contracts abroad. It's a short list that's interested, and so I created a company to help do that. And it's somebody asked me the other day, so what do you actually do? And I'm going, yeah, that's just a tough question, because in the end, it's a little bit of business development because you're connecting others. It's a little bit of marketing. It's a little bit of strategy, a business strategy. How do you break into a market, especially, overseas? And then how do you get people to buy in? I mean, it's almost a little bit of mentoring and coaching and like convincing them like this can be a good life. This can be a good opportunity. And then, aside from that, it's the stuff that we typically talk about, like, oh, that's the basic stuff, right? That's the people stuff, the life stuff. But then how do you put a proposal together? What's that pre-construction look like? And I've actually found myself helping out more in the pre-construction realm than what I originally planned. And I've got a few helping me part-time. I try to devote most of my energy to the university, but I've got a couple of part-time people that just people I know that have talents and skills that I've met over the years, and I've got them doing good things. And really, I spend my time, getting to know you guys and what's next for you, and what's next for these these students and where are they going to be? And who knows, 5 years from now, when I've got a laundry list of students that I've kept up with, and what happens, I don't know. We may have the giant, most mega construction corporation we can possibly think of, but that's really not the goal. The goal is for it to be about people. And if I can help a good contractor go do a good thing in a good place, I want to go help make that happen. And at the same time, the people, right? It's the students, and that company may never grow, and that's all right. I just want to be able to invest in others, and that's where we are.
All right, Hunter, I'm going to transition into a part. It may be a little uncomfortable, but one of the reasons why Walker and I started this podcast was, there's some things in our industry that tick us off that, we want to change. We want to be a part of making it better. Last week we spoke about our values and what we talked about, and the easiest thing I can think of, the first one, we'll credit Mr. Walker a lot, is be a problem solver and a people connector. And we talk a lot about that. But try to bring in wrapping that all up. What are some things that tick you off about our industry? Maybe not even tick you off. Maybe you just don't like. And how could we change it? Because that's what we're all about.
I'll tell you what ticks me off. I had a design build project one time. Design build. So incomplete design, right? We don't have all the plans. We don't have all the specs. For those of you listening, don't know what a design build project is. The vast majority of the projects we do, everything's planned out. You put a number together, whoever's got the best number wins. Design build, we kind of work on that design together, right? Now, imagine that contract where it's almost 4,000 pages worth of documents and it's a design build. So I don't
Wow.
like lawyers and insurance guys controlling our industry. They have their place. We talk about people. Lawyers and insurance people can be people too, but I do not need 4,000 pages to guide me in how to design something, right? So that we've gotten to the point where there's so much bureaucracy, so much administration that it actually hampers our ability to build and create. And that's why we got into it to start with, right? So if I could have it my way, every project we did would be an IPD team with an integrated project delivery team where there is shared liability across everybody, including the owner, and we either all succeed or we all fail. And all these other methods that we have to put contracts together would go away. And that's how I would fix it. That shared responsibility again, make it a team again. And the big players, some of the most successful projects we have going on in America right now, that's what they're doing. And the ones that are hamstrung and can't do that are going to be your state agencies and federal agencies that are following very strict fiscal rules, which I get. We want to be fiduciaries and be responsible, but at the same time, it's killing us on the ability
Mm-hmm.
to let the guys who know how to build stuff
Right.
build stuff.
That's
I,
right.
I think I think that's interesting that you bring up the IPD, just because that's pretty relatively new to the industry. Not a lot of people are doing it except for the major players, and you don't hear about that often. It's usually design build type stuff. And I know Davis just mentioned to me earlier that he's on a a design build project as well. So Davis, tell us, how has that been in your side of the woods, or your neck of the woods, for being a design build?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing. I like Hunter's point about, it really, what I'm hearing in between those lines is it boils down to trust. And I
Oh,
agree. It's all
absolutely.
about, I can trust this subcontractor. I don't need to, I'm going to pull out the federal code because we're on a federal government job and read you line by line item that you have to do. And you just start thinking about that. That wears down the individual, whoever that person is that has to listen to that. He's tuned you out after the first 2 or 3 sentences if you're going to start pulling that out. And I have never been on a part of a job on IPD. Obviously this is my first job out of college. I'm on design build, but we bid our job on 30% of the final design. And so it's like, just
Dang.
constant change. And the best thing I can think of was we had a professor. His name is Professor Carter, and he actually taught me in what was it? I think construction communications. I think it was OSHA, and then one other class. I had him a whole semester basically. But one of the biggest things that he was really telling us about was, guys, you have to be change agents, because you're going to have to be able to take change, take conflict, and you're going to have to go how to learn how to solve the problem. And you're going to have to go learn how to lead men, women, whoever, on how to do this thing. And, if I could speak more on that, I'll go ahead and admit I don't know everything there is about construction. If there's some scale out of 0 to 100, I'm probably at 1. I'm not the brightest kid ever, but what I am good at and what I will love is I have compassion for the other person, and I want to figure out how to lead him. I want to figure out how I can make us work together as a team. And if you can tell, look at me. I'm getting all animated and throwing my hands around. You can hear my voice changing, but that's what I'm about. And I don't really know where I'm going with this, guys, but IPD, I've never been a part of, but that sounds like a cool version of what the project would look like.
Well, it's part of being a team. That's what you're looking for. You want to be part of the team, and what I mean, really, what you said there with the leading and the problem solving, it was really in it because you talk about one of the previous questions of being overseas and being a construction manager, and what did that actually look like? It looked about it looked like me being in a lot of meetings that were technically over my head because what I figured out is there was no one person that knew everything about every
Yes,
facet
sir.
of a project. And once you get over the fact, like, I don't know that acronym. I don't know
Yep.
what you just said. I need you to explain that to me. And when you start doing that, the walls kind of started breaking down, and my position kind of morphed into a place where it was really just there's no job title for it other than you know problem solver. You call it a firefighter, you always go into the hottest fires, right? But you know all I would do is I would put people in the same room that needed to make a decision together, and I would facilitate that decision. I
Yep.
was not an expert on advanced mechanical equipment. I'm not an expert on nuclear, biological, chemical filtration for
Wow.
buildings. That's not me, right?
Right.
So
Right.
but I can sit with that guy and I can tell him when he's talking over my head, because when he's over my head he's probably over the guy's head right next to me. But
Mm,
I'm willing to say it and that guy's not. So when we get that proper communication,
that's right.
that's that's really what I did. And we would have, you know, change orders that just stacked up because nobody was willing to say, I don't know if this is the right amount of money because I don't understand what's going on.
Mm,
So,
Hmm.
we start answering questions. That's really, you ask the right question, it leads to another question. You finally get an answer, then you get an understanding. And after the understanding, you can communicate. When you can communicate, you can actually work together to build something, right? So it's just
that's
like
right.
multi-layered process that is not rocket science.
That's
We
right.
just need to listen to the person beside us.
Amen.
Kind
Yeah,
of
I
kind
love
of
that.
goes into. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean
Sorry.
to interrupt. I was going to say that kind of goes into the whole thing of you never want to be the smartest person in the room. It's like what Johnny Green said in one of our previous podcasts. You
But
never be afraid to ask questions. He told me that if you don't understand what someone's saying or what someone just spoke about, write it down and come to me, and I'll try to clarify it for you. And if I can't clarify it, I'll find someone who can. And I love that. But David, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What were you about to say?
Hunter, go ahead. You looked like you had something.
yeah, so the comment about being the smartest person in the room, it's an interesting statement because in reality, everybody at the table is probably the smartest person in the room about something,
Hmm.
right?
It's true. That's
And
good.
everybody's got, and it may be whatever obscure, niche or
Right.
book or movie or actual skill, who knows? But they're smart about something. And what you want to do is you want to surround yourself with people who have different areas of brilliance,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And the people that I want on my team, I don't want everybody like me on my team. I can do what I do. I need some people that make up for my weaknesses. That's what I want on my team. And if they're the
Really good.
smartest ones that can possibly do that, bring them on. You know, I
Mm,
I have no problem looking at that guy going, whoop, you're going to have to dumb it down for me. I'll do my
yeah,
best to handle it, but you're going to have to dumb it down for me. You
that's
know,
right. That's right. And I love that too because I start to think about, this is what April now. I started back in January, and the first few months, I mean, they were humbling. They were, you come out of college and you just think, man, I'm the man on top. And you get there and you're like, nope, let's kick it down about
How long did that
5
last? How
years.
long did that man on top
Yeah,
last?
exactly. It lasts about 5 years. And, I think, man, I'm going to have a humble experience coming in. Like, I already know I don't know a lot. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. But I mean, I'm on this huge job that's almost $60 million. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm a tiny little ant in this world of construction. But what can I do? I'm going to go talk to every sub. I'm going to go make a relationship with every person I can. I'm going to go talk to the guy that's cleaning the porta johns. I'm going to go talk to Chuck, the superintendent. I'm going to go talk to whoever it may be, and I'm going to go invest in them. And you're right. I'm not afraid to tell someone I don't know. I don't care that I don't know. But what I do care about is how can I get the players around us involved to make a decision together. And I'll give you a perfect example really quickly. Today I met with a sub, and it's between their project manager and the I don't know, foreman superintendent. And I was helping them trying to figure out how are we going to put our daily report on Playing Grid. I'm the guy, the young buck, trying to help them figure it out, and they're having miscommunication. I was like, no, what he meant to say was, he's not going to fill this role, you are. And he goes, oh, okay, yeah, I got it now. And it's just like that simple thing. Try to read between the lines and communicate together.
And so often it is that
It's really
simple.
good.
It really is that simple. You just got to be willing to listen.
Yeah, I love all that incredible advice. But Hunter, we're starting to get down towards the end of the leg of the podcast today. But before we go, I like to ask the same question. I'm sure you've heard it many a times. But what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self with the wisdom and knowledge that you know now?
Well, let me start with, both of you have been guilty, as I've listened to your podcast, of stealing what I think is really good advice. But I'm glad to hear it from you. And Davis talks about the questions, and that it is, man, just asking the right. You can have an entire conversation and never state anything, right? Just asking the right question.
Yeah, it's really good.
And Walker, you talk about being able to learn from anybody. And I usually, I've talked to my sons about that at length. You can learn from anybody. You absolutely can. Sometimes it's what to do. Sometimes it's what not to do.
Not to
all
do.
all those, if people out there listening that have had that bad boss, like, okay, what can you learn from why were they a bad boss? Why did you not like them? Or this project went bad. What can you learn from the things going bad, right? But what I would tell my 20-year-old self is, keep God first, keep family next. And I could, like, I sit here and talk about my career moves and moving around the world, and I've had a wife beside me. We've been married 21 years, and she has been amazing. And she had,
That's
the
incredible.
decisions we've made together. We talk about what happens in August, what happens when my contract's up. Well, we're gonna make that decision together, and I'm gonna talk to my kids about it. My boys are 18 and 20 now, and they're I am a blessed man with my family. But so I would encourage myself to keep them close, because man, I couldn't have done it without them. And then probably two words: grit and grace. Like we
Love it.
talk about intelligence, we talk about credentials and education, and so much is just having grit, just being able to get it done. And that's something that I can't really teach you. I can tell you which of my students probably have that, and they're going to go far. And it's not because they're making straight A's. It's not because they were the high school quarterback or prom, or prom queen, but they've got some grit, and they're not scared to fight, and they're going to get it done. And then the grace aspect, and we got to realize everybody's, it's about the people, and everybody's got a story, and you don't know that construction worker, man. And I've had a couple of incidences that I've had to diffuse, and I've been able to diffuse them, knowing that you've got to try to put yourself in their shoes. And we're all different, and we're all ants on that anthill, working together, right? But um, we've got to give respect.
I love
That's
that.
right.
It's really good. Davis, you have some?
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I love that grit and grace. And think about Jasper Smith, grit, keep on coming back, keep on trying, keep persevering. And grace, like you said, just love them. Try your best. Come back. That's part of grit too, honestly, when it comes to people. Come back to them. Tell them that you're okay. To have that hard conversation. Don't be willing to just quit after you had an argument with somebody. Go pursue them. Go try, because I would want the same thing to do. Someone to do that to me. I mean, Lord knows I need it. I mean, I wouldn't have got this far in life if someone didn't think, okay, that dude's a butthead. Sorry, he's over with.
No.
Well,
I think we could.
sorry,
You
Walker.
guys.
I just want to piggyback on what David said there with the pursuing others. That's how you build community. We can get on our chat rooms and we can get in social media and we can find a whole lot of people who think just like we do, but in reality, that's not how the world works. We all make each other better, and if we pursue community and accept people for what they their different life experiences and what makes them unique, it makes us all stronger.
That's so good. I love the fact that you brought that. I think one of the major problems with the world is that none of us are, not none of us, but not a lot of people are willing to have conversations with someone else who doesn't agree with them or has a different worldview. But that's neither here nor there. That's a whole nother conversation to be had. But man, Hunter,
That's a
thank
whole nother
you.
podcast.
That's a whole nother podcast. But man, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm really excited that we finally got you here. You've been very instrumental in helping us get to where we are, and incredibly supportive. So, man, I would absolutely love to have you back on here sometime soon as well. Just do a little recap and continue the conversation. But again, thank you so much. Loved hearing your story, and can't wait to speak to you again.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for what you're doing. Keep inspiring others. Let's get some people in this industry that look forward to building something. Let's do it. Thank you.
That's right.